if you look at the way people behave, it's true. A lot of what you see is pretty bad. We look at each other and we don't see each other at all. We don't see the inconceivable brilliance that's before us. Instead of that, we ignore it and we cover it over with all kinds of conceptions. And you think, oh yes, I know who you are. You're just like that other person who I know. Therefore, you're probably similar to them in personality. And you said that one thing, which I didn't like. So now I know a lot about your mind. But you did that other thing that I did like, so I know even more. We create a whole model of the person, even before we know them. And that's, as I say, best case scenario for most of us. So most of us aren't even doing that. We're not even forming an idea of who this person is. We're just using the interaction to fortify our idea of who we are. So we're not even paying attention to a dream of who they are. Our interaction with them is a dream within a dream. Total delusion. And yet, isn't it true that somehow, despite all of that constant work to maintain distance, safety, division from each other, somehow, sometimes, people do care for each other. It's true, isn't it? You can't deny it. Sometimes people sacrifice for each other. Sometimes people actually help each other. Real help. Sometimes people love each other. It's true, isn't it? You can't deny it. This is the power of awakening. Despite the fact that we are a people who are stuck in conceiving, somehow the inconceivable brilliance of ourselves and others nonetheless shines forth in our minds and helps us to behave accordingly. Somehow that does happen, doesn't it? The little boy catches a daddy long legs. He's playing with it, going to pull its legs off. This is what we're like so much of the time. We don't see the brilliance, the beauty, the precious life there. We just see a structure. We turn it into a mental concept. We don't even notice that when we say everything's material, that itself is a concept. It's utter hypocrisy demonstrated in that moment. That hypocrisy floods our minds. We're completely tangled up in delusion. Because of that delusion, we can't see the beauty of this living thing. So it just becomes a plaything. And whatever suffering we may cause it, if it gives us just a tiny bit of happiness, of interest, it's worth it. So the little boy is going to hurt that vulnerable creature. Why? Why does the little girl say, stop, don't do that? Why? Why does she do that? It's amazing. It's miraculous. There is such a thing as love. Somehow, she sees something there in that little daddy long legs. Then she says it, and somehow he sees something there. It's incredible. It's miraculous. And yet, as it says here in the text, that just naturally occurs. That's actually what is natural. That is actually natural. To cover each other over with constant conceptions, holding a distance between us, interacting with a dream, with delusion, treating that delusion in the way that delusion should be treated, which is disrespectfully, but not noticing that while we're treating delusion disrespectfully, which is reasonable, those actions actually impact a real person because we've confused a person with delusion. This is very hard for us. We're a very confused species. As I think I've mentioned to some of you, I've become interested in things, and one of the things that I've recently been very interested in, one of my passions right now, is superhero movies. This is the golden age of superhero movies right now. We have a lot of them. They're all over the place, and I'm having a great time with them. I like superheroes in general, but these movies I'm finding very interesting. Why? Because in these movies you see everything we're talking about here playing out, even though, and even you could say because of the fact that no one who's making them or writing them or watching them has any idea what's going on. And yet it's still going on. We watch these movies, the hero's journey of different types. And what are we watching? What is this story really about? Of course, we're confused. We're just human beings who are very confused. So we think it's about people. We think that there's a good person who has these powers, there's an evil person, and then the good person kills the evil person. Nowadays, to be politically correct, they always have some way that the good person kills the evil person without being blameworthy. Some trick. Oops. They still die. And we feel satisfied. Oh, good, the evil person died. And they died right away, and they died forever. It was a huge battle, some clever final conflict. You have to find a new twist for every movie. Somehow it's a big fight. And then the good person lives, and the bad person dies. And the bad person is dead in a moment and is dead forever. And because this one person did this one thing, the whole world is saved. So obviously, this isn't talking about the world at all. It's not talking about people at all. We get confused. We think it's talking about people. You look at the screen, it sure looks like a person. But I think it's so nice there are so many cues that this isn't really about people. For example, there are no people like this anywhere. So maybe it's not about people. But we get confused. We watch the movie. It's fun. We leave. But what are we really exploring while we watch this movie? It doesn't work. A single person doesn't change anything. It's true. That isn't how history works. That isn't how the world works. Power in the world, the superpower of the human being that's allowed us to take over this planet, is cooperation. That's the real superpower that's allowed us to do all the good and evil that we've done on this planet. Cooperation is how it works. But you look at these just individual people doing big things. That isn't how anything happens, but it's how it happens in the movie. Why? You kill one person and then all the evil is extirpated. That doesn't happen. Everyone knows that. Look at history. Look at this community. You're so mad at someone. You make their life hard. Eventually they leave. Ha! What's the change? Nothing. Nothing changes. That's what. We just all, whatever bad tendencies they left with, we all just fill it in. Whatever good tendencies they left with, we just fill those in too. The community has its own kind of intelligence. Knowing just the combination of various human characteristics that we need for our own spiritual development. It's not about individuals, but this structure is about individuals. There's a good person and a bad person. So what is this really about? What are we actually watching? We're watching the spiritual path because things do work in that way on the spiritual path. We, one person, do this amazing work, fighting against all of the evil qualities within us. And there is such a thing as breaking through them and destroying them and eliminating them in one moment, and they never return. Such a thing is possible, does happen. Our good qualities fight against our bad qualities and win. Yes, that really does happen. And when that happens, the entire world is saved. The whole world shines. That evil is eliminated from our entire experience. Everything we look at is changed. So I love watching these movies because even despite all of the delusion and confusion, it's not about anything, it's fictional, it's stupid, this mythology nonetheless takes us through a true journey. And we watch these superhero movies for just one reason. Well, maybe there are a lot of reasons. But the main reason we watch the superhero movies is that we're not willing to actually go on the hero's journey. If we're meditating, you get to watch a real superhero movie. The real thing. You get to watch the real thing. And it's more scary than the movie. It's more real. It's more real than real war in the world. This is the actual war. This is the actual battle. This is it. Everything else is just a shadow of this path. We do other things because we're not willing to do this. And yet as we do those other things, somehow still there's an insight, there's a realization, there's a purification. It's amazing. This is the great adventure. This is the real adventure. And yes, in the movies you get to experience a little bit of suspense and you're not sure what's really going to happen and maybe you care a little bit about these characters. But for us, when we do this practice, it is the real thing. It really feels like it matters. This is my life. At that point, what do? Do we shut down and protect, or do we open up and consider the possibility that there might be something, some bad quality in us that could be, you could say, killed, defeated, just like in the movie. This is a true adventure. This is the real hero's journey. And just like in the movie, it's not a good movie. No one's going to go and watch the movie if there isn't some real suspense, some real possibility that it's not going to work. Why? Why? Because that's how it really is for us as we do this practice. It's not known whether we're going to manage it, if we're going to succeed. It's not clear at all. And at that point, the adventure really begins. I'd recommend to you that it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable, to take some risks. It's okay to get to the point when things get exciting. In other words, scary. That's okay. You can push that line. You don't have to push it hard, but you can push it a little bit. Let this movie, let this adventure have some, high-speed chases in it and battle scenes. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You might not make it. But these battle scenes, these chases are real. They're the real thing. And you here are invited to experience that, to experience the real thing that not only these fictional movies are based on, but even our dramatic interactions with each other and even our wars are actually all just approximations and shadows of this real journey, this real battle, this real drama that we now have the opportunity to actually experience for ourselves. So please, give yourself that opportunity. It can be an adventure, and there can be a happy ending.